Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
All right. I gotta get another sheet. Wasn't on this list. All right. Onward here. Purusha Svabhava Vihitan. Is that the verse? Can you do it?
What number?
What? 1926. 1926. I got 1926. Yeah. Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. All right, Prabhupada? Right. Okay. Anybody else want to chant a verse or anything? You good? All right. Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shraman.
Yata Varnam Yata Shraman.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam. Anmato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Anmato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Do that a couple times? Or
3 times.
one more time?
Many as you want.
You're next. You want to just do it? 3 times? Okay. Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam. Anmato Bhaya Lakshanam. Purusha Svabhava Vihitan. Yata Varnam Yata Shramam. Vairagya Ragopadivyam. Anmato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yeah, wait. No.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan. Yata Varnam Yata Shramam. Vairagya Ragopadivyam. Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam. Purusha Svabhava Vihitan. Yata Varnam Yata Shramam. Vairagya Ragopadivyam. Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitan.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Yata Varnam Yata Shramam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Vairagya Ragopadivyam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam.
All right. So word for word. Remember that. Purusha,
Purusha,
the human being.
the human being.
Swabhava,
Svabhava,
by his own acquired qualities.
by his own acquired qualities.
Vihitan,
Vihitan,
prescribed. Yata, according to. Varnam, classification of castes, yata, according to, ashramam, orders of life, vairagya, detachment, raga, attachment, upadidhyam, out of such designations, amnata, systematically, ubhaya, both, lakshanam, symptoms. Well, it's a good thing that I heard they speak English in the spiritual world. Translation in English. At Maharaj Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhismadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. And I guess the program here is I'll do about the first 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, and then Nanda will wrap it up. This is a long one tomorrow. Straighten it all out, probably. Okay, here we go. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The conception of 4 castes and 4 orders of life as planned by the Lord himself, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described in the same spirit, and so also in the Mahabharata. It is more elaborately described by Bhismadev in the Santipava, beginning from the 60th chapter. 60th. I was looking at the 16. I couldn't find it. That's why. 60th chapter. The Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being just to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Bhismadev advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. 1, not to become angry. 2, not to lie. 3, to equally distribute wealth. 4, to forgive. 5, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife. 6, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body. 7, not to be inimical towards anyone. 8, to be simple. And 9, to support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above-mentioned preliminary qualities. Besides these, the Brahmins, the intelligent men or humans, the administrative people, the mercantile community, and the labor class must acquire special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in Vedic scriptures. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential quality. It is the basis of morality, sense control. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must be controlled, and thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in the devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. In the modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. The Kshatriya, the member of the administrative class, is especially advised to give charity and not accept charity in any circumstances. Modern administrators raise subscriptions for some political functions, but never give charity to the citizens in any state function. It is just the reverse in the injunctions of the Shastra. The administrative class must be well versed in the Shastras and must not take to the profession of teachers. The administrators should never pretend to become nonviolent and thereby go to hell. When Arjuna wanted to become a nonviolent coward on the battlefield, those are fighting words. When he be a nonviolent coward on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was severely chastised by Lord Krishna. The Lord degraded Arjuna at the time to the status of an uncivilized man for his avowed acceptance of the cult of nonviolence. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by dint of numerical votes only. I guess they can be elevated by other means. The monarchs were all chivalrous personalities, and therefore monarchy should be maintained to provided the monarch is regularly trained in the occupational duties of a king. In fighting, the king or president should never return home without being hurt by the enemy. The so-called king of today never visits the war field. He is very much expert in artfully encouraging the fighting strength in the hope of false national prestige. As soon as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and labor men, the whole machinery of government becomes polluted. The Vaishyas, the members of the mercantile communities, are especially advised to protect cows. Cow protection means increasing the milk productions, namely curd and butter. Agriculture and distribution of the foodstuff are primarily duty of the mercantile community, backed by education and Vedic knowledge and trained to give in charity. As the Khatris were given charge of the protection of the citizens, the Vaishyas were given charge of the protection of the animals. Animals are never meant to be killed. Killing of animals is a symptom of a barbarian society. For a human being, agricultural produce, fruits, and milk are sufficient and compatible foodstuffs. The human society should give more attention to animal protection. The productive energy of the laborer is misused when he is occupied by industrial enterprises. Industry of various types cannot produce the essential needs of man, mainly rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruits, and vegetables. The production of machines and machine tools increases the artificial living fashion of a class of vested interests and keeps thousands of men in starvation and unrest. This should not be the standard of civilization. So that is what I was asked to... huh? Yeah, the rest is for tomorrow. Yeah, the rest is for tomorrow. Lot in there, wanting to get myself in trouble with. I got some more stuff. Well, one thing, because I think Varnashram is fantastic, but, it's sort of like, sometimes I get the feeling, rightfully and wrongly, we're just learning it, we're just getting exposed to it. And it's a pretty sophisticated thing. And sometimes, it's like, but it's good to be enthusiastic, even if we haven't had that much experience. I mean, we have to start somewhere. But, Prabhupada definitely, there's that final pastime. I guess he was very, towards physically in a compromised situation at the end there at 77, and he wanted to come to the West to Gitanagari to establish an ashram, right? Well, the thought that came to me was, he was pretty physically not at the top, he wasn't like in 1975, that kind of health condition. So was he really going to go to Gitanagari? And realistically, he's a very intelligent man. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know, but the thought came to me. But one thing he sure did was establish the principle that this is something that's important. He was in a very compromised physical condition, and he made the statement he was going to come and do that. So, and he left the work for others to do. So he definitely left a very strong statement. This is something to be taken seriously and to study deeply. What he did spend his time, even the BI was towards the end. You need certain components to do these things. From the very get-go, it was chanting Hare Krishna, prasadam, dance, association, basic Vaishnava behavior, distribute books. So, Varnashram and no Varnashram, the show will go on, as he rightly showed in how he established Krishna consciousness. Nonetheless, he made that profound statement at the end of his pastimes that this needs to be on our radar. Having said that, in this chapter, I noticed the passing of Bhishma Dev in the presence of the Lord Krishna. Yudhishthira is coming to see Bhishma Dev, who is a Mahajan. one of the greatest of personalities within Vaishnava universe, or whatever, however we conceive of Vaishnavism. He is the creme de la creme of what the standards means to be a Vaishnava in this world, or any world for that matter. So I'm looking at this verse. Yudhisthira is coming, the chapter, and it's so easy to print things off now. Hallelujah. By the grace of capitalism, which we will criticize soon enough. So in this chapter, Yudhisthira is coming to Bhishma Dev to get some advice how to get his head in the right space after this horrific experience, to be a king. And there is this, so Sthidhi Goswami is speaking this, and he chose to talk about it, and about a quarter of the chapter is everybody coming to see Bhishma Dev and why they're coming. And then there's another 12 verses where Bhishma Dev is talking to Yudhisthira, getting warmed up, they're going to speak. And then there's one verse in Varnashram, and then there's another verse on divisions of acts of charity and some other ethical principles of the king, pragmatic activities of a king and activities for salvation. And another verse, occupational duties of different. And so they're repeating another Varnashram verse, 3 verses, and then time ran out. And they could have been talking all afternoon. They don't really give a time frame here, but this is how Sukadeva Goswami. This is what he's emphasizing in the Bhagavatam in this chapter. So they did talk about these things, and of course Prabhupada did expand them on the purport. But as far as how Sutta Goswami is phrasing this chapter, that's in the middle of the chapter, so I guess that's the climatic element. But the real pakoras of it, the sweet rice and pakoras of it is, and now here, time's running out, and then we have another set of verses, how many, about 14 or so, where Bhishma Dev says, time's up, I'm out of here. He's getting himself in the right frame of mind, and then he's meditating on Krishna. So that's really the climatic element to this verse is, he's taken care of all this business, and now he's ready to go, and he's getting himself in that right spot. Here's a verse, a couple ahead of me, after. Therefore, that man who spoke on, this is about Bhishma Dev, who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking, and completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else, and fixed his wide-open eyes on the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shone. So without ruining that person's verse, that was kind of the point. That was the point. All this is leading to that. And then Bhishma Dev is focusing his mind. He's like, see you later, UF alligators, I'm gone. And then the end of the verse is then it's glorification of Bhishma. It's glorification of Bhishma. And so that's kind of how the sutta framed it. But there's a lot to speak about Varnashram, of course. And apparently the 60th, I was looking for the 60th. First place, I'm not that familiar. I get this abridged Mahabharata, right? But I was looking for the 16th chapter. Where is this? And it wasn't there because it's the 60th chapter. Bhishma, apparently in the Santi Parva, they have an expanded version of this as far as that part of the discourse. But Prabhupada does focus on that in this purport, so let's look at that. So Prabhupada's writing the conception of the 4 castes and 4 orders of life is planned by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. So let's read that. And this is what the Lord himself spoke in Bhagavad Gita. According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So I guess he created the system, but he's aloof. Or he's not, not aloof. Okay, it's one way to put it, because he's very engaged with every individual according to their desire to engage with him. But he's not enamored is a word. What is it?
Implicated.
Implicated, that's the word. Holy cow. That was the word. Dang it. He's good. That was the word. He's not implicated. He's not entrapped or, sucked into this. Okay, so that's the verse. Prabhupada is framing his purport. So the point of this system is to accelerate transcendental qualities in the individual person. That's the point of it. Not to have a really, it only rains at night. I mean, that's nice. That's nice. Why not? But the point of it is to accelerate transcendental qualities in the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity. And, from our perspective, it's not like, oh, I have a soul, if only I knew more about it. No, we are that spiritual identity, and we're self-realization. We're bringing that out, who we, getting who we actually are, getting to know you or ourselves, who we actually are, as opposed to who we are in this sort of a psychologically entertaining condition that doesn't really pull out our best qualities all the time, perhaps. Is one way to put it. Okay, accelerate the transcendental qualities of the individual person so that they may gradually, spiritual identity, and act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. Basically, again, we speak, it's fine, but we're really not Salvationists, as perhaps is emphasized in certain traditions. We're really about, getting back to where we once belonged, getting to our original condition, and in that condition, our relationship with God is Krishna is free. Prabhupada used the words inebrieties, but free from any kind of a psychological disturbance. How's that for contemporary language? That interferes with a healthy relationship. Which is the natural condition, where love flows freely, as opposed to it's a poetic device we wish we could experience or engage in. It just flows freely. They say, they talk about flowing, they talk about oceans of, swimming and diving and sinking, just unlimited. It's not, anyway, that's beyond today's my realization. All right, spiritual identity, test act according to get free from conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, so I guess there's some Puranas where we can talk about the Patriots or something, I don't know. But at least all Puranas we know about, the subject matter is this, the same spirit. And so also the Mahabharata. So they expand upon this a little bit in that verse. So here we go. Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being to train him to successfully terminate human life. So that's kind of stark. I mean, it's interesting how the language Prabhupada uses. So we're going to terminate human life. We're not going to establish a civilization where, all the pakoras are always hot and the puris are never funky, or whatever. It's like, I mean, that will come in due course. Everything comes in due course. Basically, we're trying to get rid of all this. That's the point of our ashram. If you can get rid of our ashram, that's the point of our ashram. In one sense, they say, in one sense, not, they say in the first age, the golden age. Wait, this is Satya. Thank you. Satya Yuga. I mean, there's really not, the people are just very, mode of goodness, Brahminical-ish, if you will, and there's no, need for khatris regulating society, because people already kind of got their stuff together relative to ages that will follow. But we do have it. We're very much in a civilization now, and we see these qualities, these sort of classes of people. It arises naturally, whether you want to call it varnashram or whatever you want to call it. And so then here the discussion is, how do you get the most out of that? When people, particularly as the ages progress and more and more facility arises for people in the human form to explore the lower modes of life, and these are to facilitate the desires of the living entity. Krishna's fulfilling all desires, and these things cycle. So you can get anything you want here. Any nightmare you wish to indulge in, you can have here in conditional life. So anyway, as these ages progress, and there's more variety, if you will, in expressions of modes within the human culture, then how do you coordinate that in a way that everybody still gets the best they can out of their present set of circumstances? So how to coordinate that? But these things, at least from my own appreciation, you see these things naturally, they happen. You have a class of people who are gravitating towards intellectual pursuits and so on, poetry, whatever, philosophy, whatever they may be, or religion. You have other classes gravitating towards a sort of martial, administrative, and there's a whole art to doing these things, a whole culture, and so on, a psychology there, for really, you get into it, martial, protecting, and then Vaishya, production, acquiring wealth, economic development, and so on. In working class, you get a job with somebody who can take care of you. You know, right now it's a cash economy, so you got to get some bucks. You get some remuneration, some facility by assisting others' initiatives. All right. So varnashrams prescribed for the human being to help him successfully terminate human life. So the real point of this is self-realization. Is that. It's not varnashram for the sake of varnashram. It's a tool. We engage varnashram. We engage Hindu culture to help. I mean, not that varnashram's that, but I'm just saying we engage this stuff to help people engage peacefully in a way that they feel strong in bhakti yoga. So these things are helpful means to an end. And varnashram is spoken about in that way at length. So it's a very powerful tool, and it's good to explore it. Okay, self-realization from lower animals, so just eating, mating, defending, Bhishma days. It's talked about these 9 qualifications. Very interesting here, this list. We see so many lists, but here Bhishma Dev, and his Prabhupada's emphasizing that. Some basic qualifications and just sort of productive human behavior. And I could go through them, but I don't possess any of them, and it's kind of embarrassing. So one cannot be, well, I'm running a little short on time. That too. One cannot be called, the heavenly focus is called a civilized person without acquiring these above mentioned preliminary qualities. And they're really basic, kind of common sense things. Besides these, the Brahmins, the intelligent men, as well as the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the labor class must acquire, qualities in terms of occupational duties, how to coordinate these functions in a productive way for themselves and society at large. In the Vedic scriptures, there's plenty of information about that. For intelligent men, controlling the senses is essential. So if you're going to be a Brahmin, if you're going to play the role of the Brahmin, then some capacity of sense administration. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Sense control is required. Part of that should be a symptom of being in the mode of goodness. If you're in the mode of goodness, you're getting that higher taste. So it's not like, geez, I'm appointed, I don't know, some priest or bishop or something, and holy cow, I'm not going to go to the bar tonight because I'll lose my pension or something. It should be a natural, ideally it's going to be a natural expression of where these particular individuals are at. And they're doing this, whether you want to call them Brahmins or not, it's just a natural quality. They're realized Brahmins. And of course, there may be those, who aspire to that too. And you take up the process of bhakti yoga, and gradually we can purify the heart and get ourselves there. And actually, all of our ashram is intended to that. Because in the mode of goodness, if one is situated in the mode of goodness, it's the most productive energy to be, in one sense, wallowing in, because it's still not transcendental energy. But to be working with to make accelerated advancement. So and we see all that too, and how Prabhupada set down standards for this particular institution that we're all happily engaged with most of the time, or at least some of the time, or at least right now, hopefully. Moving on from that offense. But he established these Brahminical standards, and it seems maybe pretty obvious more in retrospect. Perhaps we were more aspiring Brahmins, and perhaps still are in my case, than realized Brahmins. But he may not have had the best, most ideal material to work with, but he worked with it, and he got a lot out of it, and he gave them these Brahminical standards for this institution to aspire for, and that's the standard of behavior for this institution. Said time and again, you need a Brahminical class. That's the crying need, and without that Brahminical class, and it's not just people appointed to wave the incense, as they say, so that's there too. Everything's there, but it's people who are realized in Brahman or in spiritual life. In Krishna, ultimately Krishna consciousness. They actually have, that's all he brought here, along with 7 rupees, right? Or 80 rupees. He brought himself, his realization, his experience of Krishna, and that was plenty enough. That got the job done. So if that's the thing you need, there's plenty of other people who came to America with no money, or with lots of money, or who knows, but they didn't get that job. Actually, oh my God, I'm wasting my time. I just tripped into an essay about some fella, some Vaishnava who came around 1910 who was preaching Krishna consciousness. Ishvara Krishna, the academic, did a compilation, and some scholar wrote about this guy. He was in Boston, and he had an apartment, a hotel room, and he had seminars. He was in LA. He did temple there. So he did something, and he wrote a book. So I'm not saying it was interesting. It was interesting that the field in the West was also being cultivated for Prabhupada's appearance. I mean, Krishna's the supreme orchestrator here. So the yoga, these things are already established. Moving on to this verse. But at any rate, that was an interesting aside. We need Brahmins. We need the Brahmins. Prabhupada came with nothing but his character, his realizations, for all practical purposes, and his books, which is his the realizations in print that you can then distribute. Because that's why we're reading the books. Is we associate with the author of the book. The author invests his psychology, his consciousness, his thoughts in the book, and we associate with that person. So the Brahmin is the most important, that class of human beings who have that realization that consciousness is most important. Prabhupada set up this institution to help cultivate those qualities in human society. So it's very, very hard. Then Prabhupada's talking a little bit critical about academics. So he's not saying they're all dumb and useless and irrelevant and of the devil, but or maybe he is, but he says, in modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration, and that's true. Therefore, the results of education is, without the character, the moral, that sort of thing that we're just talking about, the results of education is misuse of high intelligence. So he's saying they do have high intelligence, but to what purpose? So where's the heart? That's what, it's not that the intelligence is the last stop. It's actually the heart, the consciousness of the person that directs the intelligence. This is where I'm going to apply. Hitler was a very intelligent person, believe you me. So how did he, assuming nobody here is a fan of Hitler, how did he direct his intelligence? We would say maybe it's not the most productive way to direct intelligence. So he had plenty of intelligence, but his character perhaps could be analyzed for not being in the best spot possible under the circumstances. Is that politically correct? All right, so where the heart at is really the most important qualification. And if the heart is in the mode of goodness, then there's really, of all my problems, I'm not worried about going to the bar. I just, or smoking, at least that much I got, Other things, but it's just not there right now. Hopefully, from here on in, I would never take it for granted. So if the heart is, well, look, I'm joking, but someone who's a heroin addict or something, that's a serious thing. I mean, they're addicted, and some substance abuse. It's not like you can just think it away, So but for the grace of God, there go I, So I wouldn't take it for granted. So then we talk a little bit about Kshatriyas, the members of the administrative class, especially advised to give charity and not accept charity in any circumstances. There's a critique about how modern politics is handled. So part of that is the Kshatriyas cannot be beholden in their idealized functioning to special interests, if you will. Their special interest is the benefit of all society. And to have efficient Kshatriyas, you have to have that Brahminical community in place. And we can say, well, we don't have so much Brahminical community because the Kshatriyas, the government, or whatever doesn't support it. Well, some they do, some don't. It's a big discussion. Certainly it's not focused way as per these descriptions here. But I will say this, the Brahmins are dependent on Brahman. The Brahmins aren't dependent on the Kshatriyas. As soon as the Brahmins are dependent on the Kshatriyas, it's over. It's over. And the Kshatriyas, still, likewise, are not dependent on the Vaishyas, accepting, this special interest, that special interest. They depend, they have taxes, I guess, I'm an expert. There's policy, it's equally advised. And they rather give in charity. If they're beholden, it's to pleasing the higher principles of life as idealized, as manifest, not just idealized, but as manifest in the culture of the Brahminical communities. So the Kshatriyas support the Brahmins because it's in their interest, not that they just don't know what to do. Tell me what to do, I don't want to get in trouble. No, it's just because this is a healthy addition to any society. to have that quality of people there. And in our modern society, money is given to education and so on and so forth. There's some sense that this is required. They don't produce, directly. But here it's in a very refined state. These spiritual people who also teach military arts, they teach these other things. These other things are also there. But their consciousness is very much fixed in the mode of goodness. And that kind of ballast is what's essentially much needed in human culture to give it its sense of direction, its vision thing, as a politician once was said. Okay, so there's something here about Kshatriyas. They shouldn't take the profession of teachers because, gosh darn, you're in the middle of this big project and it's like, I got to build the wall or the dam or whatever the heck I got to do. And it's like everything, I got to re-elect it. Every time you talk, it's like, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to fight the, And so you're speaking, it's like that affects your consciousness to some degree. I mean, I got, 5 minutes left. So this is hardly a comprehensive analysis. But they're engaged in proactive action, and it's, like if somebody's teaching, and here by teaching we're emphasizing these higher qualities that are beyond these activities. The Brahmins are more detached and can deal with it for the benefit of the student, as opposed to a Kshatriya, the energy is there. As a general principle, it's like, I got to fill, I need a first baseman, I need a quarterback, I got to get this done, I'm going to lose my job, and maybe, they're under a deadline, that kind of pressure, more so. So ideally, they're not given this, they're not considered teachers for that, and many reasons. They're chivalrous personalities. In fighting, they are very brave and very much into it. It isn't just some video game that other people's lives are at stake. Hell no, I won't go. I won't fight for Texaco. Remember that slogan? So we're not fighting for these, what does it say here? In fighting, so they're not these vested interests for false national prestige or economic development. And a little bit for Vaishyas in the last 5 minutes. Protecting cows. That's really a great way to just, protect the cows. You can't figure the rest of it out. Protect the cows, protect the cows, protect the cows. Because once you do that, so many other issues start to fall into line. You got to give them a couple of sound bites, protect the, like we said, you're not the body, just chant Hare Krishna. You give them a couple of sound bites, and you're not going to, but that starts to get the energy, the headspace in the right spot very quickly. So then now you can start to deal with these other productive things. So protect the cows. Basic, simple needs. And look, I got nothing against capitalism. It's treated me pretty decently. But there's an ugly side to it. There's no question about that. Capitalism, Carnegie famously said the point of capitalism is, this is a paraphrase, is to turn luxuries into necessities. So the thing is, because capitalism is so productive economically, and we say, oh wow, that's hard. Well, the way we live, even if we're poor, we're living wealthier than the elites of any other civilization up to maybe 150 years ago, 200 years ago. I mean, we live better as a poor bum. Hot food, varieties of food, heat, cold, heat, entertainment, if you want that, cable. And, there's nothing there, but on and on. You just hop in your car, any poor dude can get a car, or dudette can get a car. It's, you used to have a carriage and horses and people, and it's a whole thing. You had to be freaking wealthy for that, elite. But now, so this thing, and we engage it. That's the point. We engage it. We engage it in Krishna's service. But there are problems with that. We don't need that to engage in devotional service. And I think that's the point here. And it can be abused, and it has been abused. So there are problems with that. At the core, just a simple life. And why do we emphasize simple life? To just take care of business, to live a simple, happy life, the good life, as they say. They have good life courses now at UF and elsewhere. They wanted me to teach it, and I was like, no, thank you. They try. They have that sentiment. So the simple, good life, to get the most productive energy out of the laborers. That's the big, 20th century. The laborers are just thrown into these factories. Now factories are like sanitized country clubs compared to the factories of the 1800s and the early 20th century. You're working like 10, like every day. The big thing was 9-hour days and the weekend off. That was the big thing. They were having vicious riots over that, just to not have to work every day. Just kids would go into, they never see the light of the day. They don't even go to school, nothing. So they instituted mandatory education. Get the kids out of the mines, out of the factories. Long story there. Incredible abuse. It's not on the. It's still there, particularly in third world countries. I just read. I got to wrap it up, but because I just read a headline. I didn't read the whole article, but in parts of Asia, they're having problems with what's the word? Child bondage, slavery, Child labor. But there's a stronger word. Trafficking, that's the word. Because, they're not making money, and these guys, let's go, give you $7, and then they go throw them in some bangle factory, in Rajasthan or something. And they never, so this thing goes on. It still goes on. It's always a problem. There is upside and downside to anything. We can engage capitalism, but I think the main point is we don't need any of these things. If they're there, we'll engage them. If they're not there, life goes on quite happily. The problem is luxuries become necessities. All right, so it's nice to have these luxuries, you engage them, but they're not necessities. They're not necessities. I think that was the Sunday feast class. They're not necessities. I mean, we can engage them. Hey, whatever. Wet stool, dry stool. Krishna loves cows, right? What's the problem? So, but they're not necessities. All right, so I think that's a nice little thing to wrap it up with. I haven't gotten into too much trouble, I hope. Oh, but okay, I can't stop, right? So I pulled out, so Bhagavad Gita has the nice chapter on qualities, the wrap-up chapter, conclusion, chapter 18, perfection and renunciation. And they have qualities of the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas and the different modes. And here's a couple of things here. Why is Varna, so according to the three, this is chapter 18, 19 through 21. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge. Three kinds of knowledge. And to me, there's like three kinds of psychologies that are prominent. Worldviews. Three kinds of knowledge. Action and performative action. Now hear them from me. So that knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided in innumerable forms, you should understand to be the mode of goodness. So that's where the Brahmins got to be at. They're not all like, oh, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, what are you again? Oh, I should. You have money? Oh, okay. They're not. They're seeing. But so where does it break down? To me, that knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there's a different type of living entity, you should understand to be the mode of passion. So, when we engage Varnashram, but when you become enamored by Varnashram, there could be a sign we're starting to sink, influenced by the mode of passion. It's tricky. And the reason why Varnashram, at least my appreciation is it works, is because you have that strong, healthy, realized Brahminical community providing the ballast that keeps this thing on track. So it doesn't become into some farcical, materialistic reflection of something that's actually very beneficial. And Prabhupada wanted us to explore and consider over time. If not, the next 10 minutes. In questions and answers. I'm done.
No, you're not done.
Oh, well, I'm done.
I have
I'm
many
done.
questions, but at least the
All right, you got some.
first question to you last. Brahmana, Sattvagun, higher than the passion, Rajagun, Kshatriya. So Brahmana seeing one's undivided soul, and the Kshatriya, the second class, or Rajagun, which is lower, sees different soul in different body. In one sense, aren't every body has a different soul?
Well, it's just the quality. It doesn't say Kshatriyas here. It says the quality. A symptom of the mode of passion is you start to identify the self with the body. So, they're black, or they're from, South Carolina, or, whatever. There's a problem here. There's a white dude with a southern accent. They must be, they are that. As opposed to, well, maybe that's a conditioning or something they're going through now, and there's a lot of facets to human beings are complicated. But who they really are is, Prabhupada could see where we were at. I read about this and heard about this. You could see where everybody was at. He was got his feet grounded. But he didn't treat people like that's where you're at and that's where you'll ever be. You know, he saw what your potential was, and he pulled it out. So the Brahmins see that potential. It's not that they don't realize Brahmin. You know, and Prabhupada's our architectural example, archetypical example of a realized Brahmin. Yeah, they you know, acting on the Majjhima platform. It's not like they come down to it like, oh, I fell from the spiritual world. It's like, you know, now, you know, I'm going to play with the kids. Now I'm going to get on the floor and play with the kids. It's not like now I'm not an adult anymore. But now I'm relating to the kids so that they feel comfortable and we're all having fun. I'm not going to talk to them about the budget for the month and, you know, my day at work and, calculus. You know, but the adult can, you know, or teacher at school, they talk to, you know. So the Brahmins know where things are at, hopefully, they realize. But they have that vision of how things are really at is very pronounced. Whereas when you get to the mode of passion, more so, I mean, intelligence is still there, and you can talk, you know, you see people in mode of passion, it's good, bad, right, wrong. Oh, that's good, you know, you can talk to the people in the mode of passion because there's intelligence there, but, you know, the energy is more volatile, so it's easy to slip. So you need that, so in the mode of passion, then you slip into this. And again, this is like one verse, it's sort of like saying everything about England, and that ever could be said in one sentence, you know, these are, you know, or something, you know, these are big subjects, and this is, you know, or anything you need to know about being a devotee. Oh, you're not your body and just chant Hare Krishna. Sure, you know, that's all you need to know. But obviously, there's more to be said. So again, you know, these are sort of help get you going on a topic that expands. You know,
that's very good.
Yeah,
good answer. One more. That one cannot be called civilized without acquiring the 9 principles that you, at least preliminary qualification to Prabhupada writes. Now if you look at all these 9, actually I was looking out, they are all present in the battlefield and Krishna actually is behind it. Not to become angry, he was trying to make Arjuna angry. So was he making him uncivilized or civilized?
Well, not to be controlled by anger. You know, not to become angry. Okay. You know, you can engage anything. So you're proactively engaging it for Krishna's pleasure or for the benefit of human society, for a higher purpose. You engage anger. Because elsewhere it's like, you know, he's talking about the Kachiyas, you know, don't be, don't be a coward, basically. We use that word a few times. Be chivalrous. So, you know, we can engage everything in Krishna's service. So, but the problem with anger is you get frustrated, and then you get angry, and you're sort of taken away by that, and it's undirected. It's undirected. In fact, I was thinking nuclear power. I was thinking, I was going to use as an example, but I didn't. You know, it's like, well, let's start Varnashram. Let's build a nuclear power plant, right? Right. So if you build a nuclear power plant properly, you can produce electricity. I mean, it's problematic. It's just an example. And it's good, but if you don't build it properly, the thing melts down, and the entire county is going to be glowing for the next 1,000 years. So, you know, anger could be like that a little bit. You can engage it proactively and do something constructive to chastise. You know, hey, the person's walking backwards on the roof with the kite. Hey, yo, dope, you know, stop, you know, you're not stopping. You know, you get angry, you make them, you know, so you apply it therapeutically. The surgeon cuts. Oh, that's so violent. Actually, I watch videos of surgery. You know, it's one thing, you know, because it's like they're doing it proactively. You know, it's one thing you get blasted and it's like, hey, I'm a guy, I didn't feel that. But it's another thing, it's like somebody's like doing a carpentry project on your knee. It was like, oh my God, couldn't deal with it. But I don't know what that has to do with the question. But
no, that's good. But it looks like besides Krishna consciousness, these 9 principles is not actually can be applied, whether civilized or uncivilized. Because you are answering perfectly from the Krishna consciousness point. Because next one is not to lie. I mean, Krishna instigated or Yudhishthira to lie. So from Krishna consciousness, that's all good. But from a material morality, I don't know if this is the...
Well, we engage material morality here. We engage it. We're not mundane moralists. We're not doing these things for the sake of doing them. We're doing these things to develop self-realization, to develop our relationship with Krishna. So, you know, it's sort of like, that's the point of it. But these things help extract us from the mode of passion. You know, okay, there's a famous personality who has a reputation for opportunistically saying whatever passes through their head that sounds good to make a sale. You know, and you know, it's almost like they're not lying, they're just trying to make the sale, and this works. But, you know, maybe there's a place for that. So these are principles. He's advising for all human beings to consider these things, these 9 qualifications. So we may engage in lying, but we're not habitual liars. We're controlled by the anger. Or we can't stop doing it because that's our go-to mode, and we really don't have any other cards in the deck. If we're engaging it, like an Avaduta may do certain things that aren't, up to, but they're not enamored by it, they're not controlled by it. So the Brahmins or whoever, or in Krishna consciousness even, we're not controlled by these things, but we could engage in. Now in our situation, people look to the Brahmins, well, they're in the mode of goodness, they're not controlled by these things. So even if, we're in a therapeutic condition, so 4 regular principles are nice little reference points to keep us from falling deeper and deeper in the mode of, these are all activities in the mode of passion. I don't want to get, I'm a recovering materialistic-aholic, so these are things that I don't want to indulge in. But then other people see you doing things, and even if it's like, well, what's one cigarette, after class, I gotta relax, eat a donut, has eggs in it, well, geez, I didn't read the ingredients. But then, big deal. But, but I mean, other people, it's like, well, what's it about? The guy's not, the gal, it's always guys. The guy's not really following it, is this real? I mean, this was a big, when I was a kid, I was hanging out with a bunch of Catholics, and the nuns, they all do it, it's like, what's the point? It's just all ritualistic play acting. But, so for the Brahmins who realize this is a natural condition anyway, so what's the point? It's not like, I got it, it's natural, but if you're still working through these issues, as often is the case, hardly, this is a tricky little place to negotiate. These are things to hold on to. This is our go-to. It's not that our go-to is to lie or to be angry, Our go-to is to avoid these things, and maybe this special circumstance and context we might consider it, but our go-to, short of sitting down and having a seminar discussing the ethics of it, is if we don't have time to think about it, probably 99 times out of 100, you're in a good spot if you pull back and don't do these, and follow these 9 principles.
Just one last.
Okay, if you're going to, write like 3 sentences about it, then I would stick with these 3 sentences, and then the complexity we can explore elsewhere.
Can you explain something about simple? To be simple is
Mode of
one
goodness.
of the main
Mode of
principles.
goodness. Mode of goodness is simple. It takes a lot of intelligence to keep things simple. Any fool can make something simple complicated in no time. Right? Give your kid $50 and, the keys to the car, and they go wrap it around a tree, So that's a lot of problem. Not anybody's kids here listening in. I'm talking about karmic kids, not devotee kids. So, any foolish person can make something simple complicated. So, in the mode of goodness, you can get to the essence, you see the point, you focus in on the point, you get to the heart of it, you keep it simple. And material life, simple material life helps, for a Brahminical person, it's a bit of a natural thing, and then it helps you focus on those more important things. Now, the other Varnas, the countries don't live that simply by that standard, the Brahminical standard. Neither do the Vaishyas, with the Speaker Sudras. But the Brahmins, as a natural condition, would do that, and it's important to have that kind of community there. All right.
What does simple mean?
Simple means mode of goodness. I would say mode of goodness. We can define it. I would say if you're in mode of goodness, you're naturally simple. Simple-hearted. People said Prabhupada's a very sophisticated cosmopolitan person. He was very savvy, but he was also very simple, very to the point. Very, some people say almost childlike sometimes in his ability to touch your heart.
Sure.
So, how do you do this?
Simplicity without duplicity. No duplicity.
That's a nice one. That's a nice version. No duplicity. You get to the heart and you're focused. So there's so many ways to handle that.